Welcome to the introduction of Brain Controlled Sales with Andy Gutierrez of 86percentvisualadvantage.com. This is a U.S. copyrighted program and is only offered through 86percentvisualadvantage.com. The rules of the brain game. That's what controls our behavior. That's what controls our memory. That's what controls our lives, really. So let's take a look at the rules of the brain game. Yeah, this is kind of cute. The rules of the brain game. Yeah, the rules of the brain game. How much can you keep in your head? Good question, huh? How much can you keep in your head? Do you know the answer yet? We all think we do. We think that our mind is this one giant computer that, just is there. But there's supercomputers out there. China has one right now that's worth 1 million laptops hooked together doing parallel programs. Can our head do that? Answer is no. Pure and simple, the answer is no. The brain has capacities, especially in learning new things. And so when you're walking into a client, you're having a negotiation, whatever you're doing there, you've got to remember that you can't overload what the brain says it can do. Because once the brain overloads, it's a ballgame. It's important for you to know, in having someone remember what you want them to remember, the capacities of the brain. First of all, the brain can only process 4 items in 30 seconds. And also remember that the brain can only remember 8 new items in 1 hour. And finally, an average attention span of an adult can be up to 20 minutes. Yeah, the capacities of the brain, isn't that something? It can only process 4 new items in 30 seconds. That's what it's got. That's what it normally does. It used to be thought that it could process 7 new items in 30 seconds. That was Miller's law. However, once again, with the new scientific proof that's coming on board, your brain averages 4 new items in 30 seconds. So therefore, processing means what? I'm going to remember it, I'm going to put it into short-term memory, I'm going to throw it away, I'm going to put it in this holding tank for a while, but you've got to remember that even if it does put it into this holding tank, which we call short-term memory, that's not going to sit there between 3 and 30 seconds. Something's going to have to happen to it. So by knowing the rules of the game, even this little one here, you realize that maybe sometimes we talk a little bit too much. The next thing is that even if you're doing a presentation, this neat presentation that you're going to be doing in PowerPoint, you've got to remember that the brain only has the capacity to remember 8 new things in an hour. That's it. Just 8 new things in an hour. It used to be in the old days that, if somebody said, well, you're going to talk for an hour, you say, okay, that's 60 minutes, a slide takes 3 minutes, I need 20 slides. Well, that's really, really incorrect. That's not right. What you want to do is to make sure that the slides that you're putting up in your PowerPoint presentation are not loaded with non-essential information. What you want to make sure is that you have your key topics there, though. Key topics. That's what you're going to start to learn. A lot of other things support key topics, but it doesn't mean that the client is going to remember all those other things you're talking about, but you do want them to remember key topics. And the last thing, one of the last things of the rules of the brain game, and it's not the last thing by any means of imagination, is that an adult's attention span has a capacity, and once again I want to say capacity, of 20 minutes. But there's different types of attention spans. And we're going to talk about those in future videos too, okay? One of the first things you should learn is that the brain likes topics that are personal and meaningful. This was a good one. When I found out about the way that the brain remembers things, I figured, hey, put it on a PowerPoint, put that slide up there, and just leave it up there. It's going to force those people to remember what I want them to remember. And when I'm reading this research book, and it says to me on the next page, it was like it was reading my mind, and it says, hey, Andy, that's not true. Because if it's not personal and meaningful, the brain isn't going to process it anyhow. Isn't that something? That's why sometimes, once it gets into the back of your brain here, This is where your long-term memory is, and it's also biased. So if we start coming at someone, just like if you drive up to a used car dealer or a new car dealer and you see the guys walking out at you, it's the same thing. The brain says, I've seen it all before and I don't want to go through this hassle again, right? So when it's personal and meaningful though, to you, and not just to you, but to the person you're talking to, that's when the brain opens up. So if you want to walk in somewhere, you're a salesperson. If you keep on using that salesperson lingo, the same announcement that you're there, that everybody else is using, the brain is telling that client to shut down. That's what's happening. So what you've got to do is you've got to get some individualistic things about yourself in the way that you do introduce yourself. And also it's got to be personal and meaningful. Remember that, personal and meaningful. It goes along with the 86% that a person remembers they see. See, there's very key things in here that you're going to keep on remembering, all right? So please do that. It's very, very important. And once again, we'll discuss it further. To make your brain happy and yourself happy, always use uncomplicated expressions or statements. The brain does not like something that is complicated. Yep, the brain is happy and you're happy as long as things are not complicated. And that's true for all of us. That's true for all of us. And the more complicated things are, the harder the brain has to work. And the brain really, really doesn't like to do that stuff. Just like you don't like to do that stuff. So when you're explaining something to a client, please keep it simple. It's the old KISS routine, K-I-S-S, and I won't get into, keep it simple, stupid, but you want to keep it simple. You don't want the brain to make all these different moves. Like, I saw somebody's website one day, and at the top part it said, we're different than our competition. Our competition does blah, 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 blah. And then underneath it, underneath that paragraph, it says, this is what we do. Well, the brain doesn't like that. The brain doesn't have to want to look up there or down here, up there or down here. It doesn't want to do that. What the brain wants to do is say, okay, our competition does this, but we do this. Simple, uncomplicated. So the next time that you're starting to prepare a presentation, keep that in mind too. Keep it simple. Keep it simple. The way you lay things out, keep it simple and logical. That's what the brain wants. And then people will begin to remember more of what you are talking about. And if you don't believe in 86% visual advantage, we leave you with one last thought. One advantage of talking to yourself is that you know that at least somebody's listening. Okay, and finally we came to that last slide up there, right? If you don't want to learn any more about 86% visual advantage, if you don't want to know more about this U.S. copyrighted program, and it is, you can't find this program anywhere else except right here, then don't. But just like the last slide said, one advantage of talking to yourself is that you know at least somebody's listening. And all these years that we've been doing our thing, our negotiations, our selling, without the use of visual aids and using them correctly, 86% of what a person remembers they see, only 9% they hear. Well, how often do we use our visual aids? Now, visual aids can be what? They can be body language, just like we're talking here now, right? But they can be other things too. It's anything that is seen. So just don't think that it's about body language, because it's not. There are other things, other tools that we can use to help a person remember the key topics that we want them to remember. Okay? So until the next time, please give me a call if you want, 609-410-9291. I'll be happy to talk to you, discuss more about this stuff, all right? But this is where it's at. Don't keep on doing the same old things over and over and over again. Because, it's just like that last slide said. It's really nice out there because you're talking to yourself.